This is the Today with Tally podcast.
And welcome back, folks. Today, we are going to be joined by Gold Star father Charles Strange and film director Francois Garcia and their latest documentary, Extortion 17. You Can't Burn the Truth. Now, Extortion 17 will be released very soon, and this documentary, folks, is going to be powerful. And there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be extremely angry. And America is going to be pissed off. From what I know about this documentary, it's not going to sit well with folks. It's not going to sit well with anybody in this country. But truth is the truth. And Americans deserve the truth. The Gold Star family members deserve the truth and closure on what happened on that final flight of Extortion 17. The deadliest day in the history of U.S. special operations. Why did it happen? Well, this is exactly what Gold Star father Charles Strange and film director Francois Garcia are going to set up, and they're going to tell today. Close your eyes for a moment and listen to these words that I'm going to say to you. So when we have on Charles and Francois, perhaps some of this can begin to make sense. Or perhaps you could even draw your own conclusion on what you think happened based off of the information I'm going to give you now, leading into what this documentary is going to be about when we have on Charles and Francois here momentarily. Now, in the early morning hours of August 6th of 2011, two U.S. Army CH-47 Chinooks were deployed from a forward operating base 40 miles south of Kabul, Afghanistan, in support of U.S. Army Rangers taking down a high-value target and a key Taliban leader. This mission was to serve as a reinforcement. The Chinooks flew with no lights, which is standard procedure for night special forces operations. The two helicopters' call signs were Extortion 17 and Extortion 16. They lifted into the darkness and quickly advanced toward their destination, which was less than 20 miles west. Now, Extortion 17 and all 38 occupants would not return. All 38 KIA. A Taliban fighter shot the helicopter down with an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade. And again, all 38 were KIA. It was also the single greatest loss of American life in the Afghan war. The 20-year war on terror in Afghanistan was also the worst in the history of naval special warfare. Now, those killed ranked among the world's most highly trained and experienced warfighters that our country has to offer, including 17 U.S. Navy SEALs, primarily from SEAL Team 6's Gold Squadron. Here's where it gets a little weird. Here's where it gets a little dicey. Here's where it gets a little spicy. 3 months. 3 months before this incident happened, before the deadliest day in the history of U.S. Special Forces, SEAL Team 6 successfully raided a compound in Pakistan and eliminated Osama bin Laden. Now, in the light of that raid's success, the shootdown of Extortion 17 incited a flurry of conspiracy theories. Here are some questions that I have, that the Gold Star families have, Americans have, veterans, active duty service members. Look, we just want the truth. What's the truth here? Why did this happen? Was the Taliban tipped off? A lot of folks say yes. Was the Taliban tipped off? Did Extortion 17 fly into a trap? Into the arms of Taliban fighters that were armed with RPGs, waiting to take down this Chinook? Some folks say it was retribution for taking out Osama bin Laden. Sources from the highest levels in our military and our government say no real evidence has emerged to support any of these claims. Would the military and the government say that they had real evidence that a conspiracy happened? I don't think they would. I don't think they'd come clean. So what exactly happened? We find out now. And with that, we welcome Gold Star father Charles Strange and film director Francois Garcia to the show. How are you?
Good afternoon, Brian.
My man from Philly. Gotta love Charles Strange. The man who gets better looking every day. Francois, how are you doing?
Good, you?
Good, man. Hanging in there. You know, another day, another podcast here. You know, I've been following this story for years and years and years. Extortion 17 it was a bad day. It was a bad day in U.S. military history. It was a bad day in American history. We lost a lot of good men that day. It did need to happen, but that's what happens in war. You guys are putting together a documentary to shed some light on this dark day in American history. And that's where you come in, Francois, and working alongside your counterpart, Gold Star father Charles Strange, who lost his son, a cryptologist that was assigned to SEAL Team 6 on that deadly day. So, guys, look, the documentary, Extortion 17, You Can't Burn the Truth. What's the motivation behind this? How did you guys get together?
That's the
funny Francois, Billy the Painter.
Billy the Painter. Well, the story begins around 2017 or so. I had spent quite a few years documenting another project. Spent about 6 years on the trail following John McAfee, the antivirus guy. And after 6 years, that story took a toll on me and took a toll on my family as well. Spent a lot of time in the United States, Central America, filming. And by the end of it, I made a promise to my wife, or actually she imposed me that promise to stay away from crazy stories for the next little while, so we could have some quiet and peace at home. Which I said, okay. She said, do anything, make a story about maple syrup or something, which I did. And Patricia, my partner, she also owns a tea company. And one of her clients, this guy based out of Philly, Billy the Painter, would call her often with questions and about her products. And, they would end up talking on the phone, chit-chatting. And one day he asked her, he's like, what does your husband do? And she's like, oh, he's a filmmaker. And I told her about the past projects. He's like, oh boy, do I have a story for you. So she tells him all about Charlie and Extortion. And she tells me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. She goes, no, you promised. No. I'm like, well, at least let me hear him out and, say what for him to say what he has to say, and I will gracefully pass on it. And so we had a phone call with Charlie, who was in the kitchen on speakerphone. Patricia was standing away, probably 15 feet away, just listening, making sure that I'm not going to say yes. And halfway through, Charlie's talking about Michael and explaining the whole thing. I think Charlie started crying. I look up, my wife is crying, and she's like, "You have to do this." So that was the beginning of it. And I can say, this is what, Charlie, 2017, end of 2017, give or take. It's been one of the most challenging things I've done so far.
Explain the challenging aspect of it, Francois.
Well, the first challenge, I didn't want to make a film about warfare. I wasn't interested in that. Number two, we knew the story. We knew what happened. We have, for a documentary, you need material. We had nothing except for a father's account, which makes it into a great story. It makes it really hard to bring that into the screen when you have nothing. So it was basically to assemble all the pieces over the years. That made it really, really challenging. Also figuring out how we're going to tell this story without being a warfare story. And there was a lot of focus on extortion and what happened that night. For me, the story was Charlie. He's a story. So at the end of the day, the film, it's a father's quest looking for answers. What happened to his son? Everything else complements the story and brings him answers.
A father's quest looking for answers. Now, look, Charlie has taken this to the highest levels that you can possibly go. Hell, he's stood in the Oval Office, and we have been through several presidents. I know when this happened, it happened under Obama. He was actually in the White House with President Trump. And the answers are few and far between. I know he's gotten, he's made a lot of headway over the years, but still, I don't think he's really found what he's looking for. Charlie, would you expand on that?
Sure. August 6th, which is coming up, it will be 14 years, August 6th, 2011. But before that, April 2011, my son called me and said, "Dad, you're not going to hear from me for a while." And I'm like, "What?" And because he would always check in, we were worried about him. And like you said earlier, May 2nd, the killing of Osama bin Laden, and then Michael was home in June for his birthday, June 6, 2011, and he grabbed me by the bicep. And he said, "Dad, you wouldn't believe what's going on in this country." And he started pacing. And he talked about a will. And I know every deployment, and he's did multiple deployments, but he never mentioned a will. And he was different. We had a huge party, 4 kegs of beer, 100 people, the pool, all that stuff. And he was telling people about a will. And he took back off. He saw my phone. He said, "Dad, I love you. I'll see you for Thanksgiving." But something was going on. And then 93 days after the bin Laden raid, like you said, it was the biggest loss of life in a single day. The biggest loss of life in the history of America. 22 of them guys were Dev Group. Michael did not go through buds. I'll just tell you real quick, Lou Langley, who was SEAL Team 6 for 14 years, they were in a gym with the Gold Squadron doing their workouts and everything like that. They line up, and Lou Langley says to Michael, Michael, why isn't your ass in at Bud's? And Michael said, because I'm the smartest MFer here. That's why. You know what I mean? And he was also like 4% body fat. So he could, he became a tier 1 operator with the Gold Squadron. It was Lou Langley, Jonas, and then Michael. So they did the investigation, in 2 weeks with General Colt. And, you're out of your mind. And they gave us a folder. And in the folder, there was 25 pages and a disc. You open up the folder, you can read the first 2 pages, but then you can't see the rest of the pages. They weren't redacted, Brian. There was no ink, no toner. So I called up Admiral Sean Pybus, who was the head of CENTCOM. And he said, Charlie, we got a lot of complaints about that. And I said, well, send me another one. He said, I can't. We burned it. And then I cursed Sean out. And we put the disc in, and all these little blocks pop up on the computer. And my wife, Marianne, after about 7 hours, 1,364 pages come out. And I wasn't military. You don't have to be in the military, but it shows how it was. It wasn't. It was the Taliban had this set up by design to kill these guys. They knew. May 11th, it says General Colt asked the question, "What is the assessment of the Tangine Valley where they all got killed?" And the guy answers, "Well, sir, 100 Taliban planned to travel through the blank province to the Tangine Valley to possibly shoot down the coalition aircraft." And that was 9 days after the Bin Laden raid. They knew 100 Taliban, and they died in the Tangine Valley. There was IEDs around the landing site. But on that disk, it was encrypted. So in 2011, we didn't have a camera on our computer, and they took my wife's picture. Boom, live time. I hear her screaming. I come running out. I said, what's up? What's up? She goes, they took my picture. They took my picture. And it said FBI, 10 to 12 years in prison. And I'm like, how'd you get that? And then all the TV stations came from Philadelphia, 3, 6, and 10. And that's when we got involved with the NSA. They were spying on me. I'm a construction worker. And for asking questions. So if you don't have nothing to hide, why would you come after a construction worker, a Gold Star father, for asking questions? And then we went to court. We had Larry Klayman as our lawyer. We went in front of Judge Leon. Your people can watch it up. Look it up. Judge Leon, NSA case. He called it Orwellian. Obama and the NSA brought 14 lawyers in. And they said, we don't spy on the American people. We don't go in their computer. His son's an American hero, da-da-da-da-da. He's grieving. My lawyer stood up. He said, in the Washington Post last week, 10 employees fired from the NSA for spying on their spouses. And Judge Leon smashed down the gavel. And that was the beginning of, and we won the case, but Obama talked about us on television. He said, we're going to look into the Gold Star family being spied on. And what they did was they changed the law. So that was like the beginning, like with the 1,364 pages explaining to Francois the information. There's something wrong here. Michael talking about a will. The Taliban was bragging a half hour after they killed them over the internet. We just killed SEAL Team 6. How'd they know who was in the Chinook? So a lot of unanswered questions. For me, I want somebody held accountable. Nothing will bring my son back, but we should never lose 30 guys and Bart the warrior dog in a single day. So for asking questions, you're going to, we were at the NSA building. Michael received the National Intelligence Medal of Valor. Only 17 been given out in the history of America since the Wind Talkers and WW2. And then after we come from the NSA, it was all underground, all that stuff. And we're out front, and this guy comes up to me, Bryce, says, every message you get, Mr. Strange, I get on my phone. I could be a block away. Every call you get, I get.
I remember when you were on 2 years ago, and you're no stranger to this program. We're good friends, and like I said, I've been following this for years. And I think it was episode 85. You detailed this full story, folks. So look, if your curiosity right now sparked, go to episode 85 and listen. There's a question that a lot of folks have out there, and Francois or Charlie, you can answer it. But there was 2 Chinooks involved that day during that night mission. There was Extortion 1-6 and Extortion 1-7. Now, Extortion 1-6 was said to be a decoy, but why did they pile everybody into Extortion 1-7 when they could have just went 50-50 and not had all their assets piled into one bird?
Good question. There's a lot of different versions on that, depending who you talk to. Some people will tell you that it's not protocol. Some people will say that it was protocol when it was decoy. It was easier to land that way.
And this mission was a reinforcement.
Right.
Well, they were going in there in support of.
They were going into support, but I mean,
Right.
everyone was trying to cancel that support. They weren't really needed. The Rangers didn't really require them. Even asked, "Why are you sending these guys?" They were somehow pushed into that. It could have been prevented. It could have been canceled. Even if they were up in the air, they could have made a U-turn and go back to the base.
And in the sheer volume, they set them up to fail. The military definitely did not set these folks up to succeed. And that's, from what I've read throughout the years, the transcripts, and everything else that has been made available and, not redacted, so there's a lot of opinions out there that people have formed throughout the years. And you are now going to be telling this story through the eyes of a Gold Star father. And to go back to what Charlie said, "Hey, Michael, how come you're not in Buds?" "Well, I'm the smartest MFer here." Well, Charlie could just be the smartest MFer when it comes to this fatherlyhood of Extortion 1-7 and keeping the memories alive of these great men that we lost, killed in action there in Afghanistan, trying to take out a high value target. Now, Charlie, it was as if Michael knew that his days were near. And it was almost as if he knew that his next deployment, he wasn't going to come home. And that's why he had these moments with you, like you were at lunch when he grabbed you, and he starts talking about wills and all that. And you guys would have these parties and such, and his friends would come over, and he just wasn't the same Michael. It was almost as if he knew that he would not be coming home. Did you ever gather any of that information? It's, like what were your final days like with him? What were your final hours like with him, knowing that, man, my son is telling me a lot of information here that I don't know. I'm just not really setting good with it.
Well, it was, heartbreaking. My last words to my son was, after we always gave a hug, and I kissed him on the cheek, even when he was hanging on the corners of Philly, all my kids. And my last words to him was, "Don't go." And Bri, I'll tell you what, he looked at me like that. I said, "Don't go, Mike." And he gave me a half smile. And he said, "I'll call you." And, I'll never forget that look. So he even, he left early. He never left early, Philadelphia, And he stopped at my sister's house, Aunt Maggie's, going back to Virginia, and told her about the will. And then my sister was like, "Oh my God, what? Why are you talking like that?" So that haunts me. I think with Francois's help and all the research he's done to show that this wasn't a lucky shot like we were told. General Colt actually told the parents, all 60 parents, that it was a lucky shot in the dark, 100 yards in the pitch dark with an RPG. And I stood up. I said, "You say lucky shot? All our sons are dead. What's wrong with you? Why would you say something like that?" And then I was grabbed by some people before I knocked his teeth down his throat. And, so, the last days with Michael, I got the memories. And his birthday was just June 6th. And you think, where would he be now? He'd be 39. Would he be married? He'd have kids. And you go into, I don't like to say the word depression, but the grief comes in, and you get hemmed up, and you get angry, and, and then you keep fighting. And then I call Francois, and I'm like, and he checked out this, like he was talking like, why didn't they turn them around? Or the Rangers said they didn't. Also about Francois filming, if you feel like it, the little interview with Joni, the girl on the C-130.
Well, I think an advantage we had on this for any documentary, usually you need time. I was talking about challenges early on. We had nothing, just some documents, conspiracies, and a father's account. So these past 6 years had allowed us to not only assemble the pieces and just keep digging. It takes time for people to start coming out of the woods. Nobody wanted to. 6 years ago, we only had Johnny Marquez. We had plenty of contacts. Nobody wanted to talk publicly, or not even off record. But as time goes by, people start feeling more comfortable, and one thing leads to another. We wrapped 5 months ago. We were in Afghanistan, so we also got to talk to the people down there involved in this. So.
Do you feel that as time goes by, folks begin to be a little bit more courageous as they know that, hey, look, I'm getting older and I'm holding on to this information that's eating me up, and I've got to tell somebody about this?
Absolutely. We had quite a few. I think it's courageous. A lot of people living with a stain on their chest that they need to get it out. I think it's realization that everybody's been following the story. It reaches the point that you have to do something. You have to contribute to bring your own truth into it.
Survivor's guilt, has got to be, at the top of that list when it comes to what happened. And, this is one of the biggest stories on our 20-year war on terror, not to mention in U.S. military history. Charlie's been engaged from this since day one, and he's been the most vocal about this, and it has led him, like I said, all the way to the White House behind closed doors and having meetings trying to get a bunch of unanswered questions that he rightfully deserves. He and all of the other Gold Star folks that received that bad news on the night of August 6th in 2011.
The story over the past close to 7 years now, I call it Russian dolls. You pop one and then you realize there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. Everything's been leading to new things. We talk about the documents. You can't base everything yourself on the documents. There's always one version, there's the other version, then there's the truth. So
The truth. That's all.
It's a weird word.
Yeah. That's all anybody ever wants in life is the truth.
Mhm.
And some people can't handle the truth, unfortunately. But it doesn't matter if they can handle the truth or not. The truth is the truth. And we are living in a world right now where finding the truth on anything is few and far between. And that is why where we are at right now in this country and in the world when it comes to conspiracies. When you are not being told the truth and you know it to be 100% fact that, look, you're lying to me. But if you're not being honest with the people, again, they're going to form their own opinions on things. So that's where these extremists, have their own conclusions. Regular everyday Joes have their own conclusions, and before you know it, you have 100 different stories out there, and you don't know up from down, left from right, right from wrong, truth, fact, fiction. Who knows?
The broken telephone game.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, hey, look, we started to peel back this onion, and every single layer that came off led to an additional 10, 12, 15, 20 different routes that we could take to go down this rabbit hole, if you will, to find what the truth is. Now, do you believe that you have uncovered some truth here that will come out during this documentary that's going to open a lot of eyes?
Absolutely. I guess go ahead, Charlie.
We have the air, right? They were there. Joni Marquez and we have the ground. We have one of the Rangers that was there.
We have the 3-letter agencies.
We got the 3-lettered agencies we filmed a few months ago that were there in the air.
That was a conspiracy, and it's no longer a conspiracy. They were there.
I didn't know if you wanted to say that or not, Francois, but but yeah, they were there.
We got the Taliban too.
What was that?
We got the Taliban as well.
And the Taliban. I mean, Air, Rangers, CIA, Taliban. The puzzle's put together. It's all in the documentary. And it's going to blow people away how corrupt the government and the military complex is, and expose a lot.
Now, you had just mentioned all of these players in this gigantic puzzle. Did you actually sit down with some Taliban fighters?
Yep.
And you also sat down with folks that were
with fighters, with family members of the individuals responsible of pulling the trigger, with witnesses on the village where it took place.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now this is this is the truth. These people were there. So
you went to Afghanistan, boots on the ground with your documentary crew, and you interviewed Taliban fighters.
I didn't go physically there. I had to send a crew, because you can't, for the past 3 years, you can't go there. You can't have cameras there. We're talking about that was like a good 4 months of negotiations, being able to set up something with certain members of the Taliban. And so we worked out a setup where I interviewed them through like this.
Right.
And I had a local crew with hidden cameras going there.
What was that experience like to be interviewing a Taliban fighter? What was that like?
It was extremely hard because, talking to them, I took a step back and very much a very neutral position, like a non-biased position. And yet it's like talking to a rock. You can't, it's impossible to reason or to find common grounds. with these people. So that was extremely challenging. On the other hand, in terms of interview, you don't have to dig for dirty secrets. They're very proud of their actions, and they'll candidly talk about it. So that's
Do you also, like you said, look, they want to put out their dirty secrets, if you will, because that's street cred to them, especially when it comes to shooting down one of the world's deadliest and most elite fighting forces in the world. The majority of these folks were with SEAL Team 6. And, that right there is a feather in the cap of the Taliban. And again, just coming on the heels of SEAL Team 6 eliminating Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. So retribution, again, these are the interviews that we're all going to find out in this documentary.
Yeah, their pride. I'll give you a layout of the village there. You have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of what they call martyrs. They're warriors, soldiers, whatever you want to call them. They're simple graves, a hole in the ground with a flag on a stick. Now the shooter of Extortion, he's the only one that actually has a grave with a headstone with barriers around, and people come on an ongoing basis to pray by his grave. He has become not just a local hero, a national hero because of it.
Now, the Taliban fighters that you interviewed, like for an example, in Iran, right? Those are very proud people. The leader got up and said, "We declare victory over Israel and over the United States." And that's what their folks know and think. And we all know that to not be true. That's propaganda. Did you ever feel that when they were telling you these dirty secrets, if you will, and giving you all this information, that what they did and how they did it could be a little farce because they're just trying to perhaps exaggerate the claims? Or was this being like, no, these are real accounts and this is exactly what happened?
They're very proud people, as you say, and look, they're still there. We went in there 20 years ago. They were there. We're not there. They're still there, stronger than ever. So in that sense, I think that they won at least their war, their perception of their war.
They did win.
They did win.
They did win. We look, 8 years and 8 months in Iraq, and then 20 years in Afghanistan. It's almost 29 years of war. We haven't won a war in 50 years, right? So, and we could demolish them. You seen, right? But the congressmen, the senators, the political action committee, the evil people in Washington, D.C., keep it going because they all make money. Follow the money.
They're there and stronger than ever.
The Taliban's strong,
There is no reason ever for the United States to be in a war longer than maybe just a couple of months. We have the resources to eliminate. That's what we can do, but to keep these going for so many years, generations, and losing great Americans, and not just great Americans, but our youth, kids, 18 to 22 years old, that is, out the patriotism of our nation. It just sinks lower and lower and lower when you look at all the loss of life. And for what? I mean, Charlie, you lost your son in this heinous act, in this crime, right? In combat, killed in action. One of the most disgusting things that happened in the 20-year war on terror in Afghanistan. And then we cut and ran. We left $8 billion of assets on the ground, and we looked like when those C-17s were running down that runway, down that tarmac, when all those Afghans were jumping on the C-17, I was embarrassed for our nation. I sincerely was. And I said, if I was a Gold Star parent, I would lose my fucking mind after seeing that, after having everything that happened, all of the loss of life. For what? For what? For what? Now, how did you feel, Charlie, being a Gold Star father, seeing how we cut and ran from Afghanistan that day, and then on the way out, lose 12 Marines and a naval corpsman, 13 KIA at the airport in Kabul on the way out, when that was an absolute shit show. And again, the U.S. government, the military, putting our men and women in the worst possible conditions that they could have been put in, when it was getting literally overran by the Afghans. What did you think?
What was it all for? What was it all for? I talked to some of them parents, the 13. I met them here in Philadelphia. Nobody wants to be a Gold Star family. And the way we, like Francois just said, they're stronger than ever. You'll see in the documentary, like, you talk about a notch in the belt for what they did to our military, and they still got the poppy going. They got everything else, the minerals, everything else. China's still there in Afghanistan. They've been there like nobody. That's why, we're putting this documentary. That's why I keep, speaking up, speaking out, trying to get somebody held accountable. I'm waiting to hear back from President Trump. October, I was on stage with President Trump and Christy Gnomes, me and my wife, in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and he promised me that he would have me at the White House. And so we're waiting on that phone call to see if he's, promises made, promises kept. I know he's a little busy. So, and we just sent out letters. I went to Washington, D.C. last month and knocked on a bunch of congressmen's doors and senators' doors. So the feeling like what happened with the 13 and the 30, Brian, we lost, killed in action, Iraq, Afghanistan, the training accidents where young men and women died, and then the suicide for almost 29 years. We lost 150,000 Americans.
Patriots.
Patriots.
Patriots. And you know what? Again, every single day, this war continues in this country. 22 to 40 American veterans are taking their lives every single day because of the same war that your son was killed in action in. And again, when that happens, every single time a veteran takes their life, the nation's patriotism just goes lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And before you know it, we're not going to have a country left of good, solid, down-home American patriots. And that right there is sad. You have 20 million come across the southern border in a 4-year period, unchecked, unvetted, all while we're leaving $8 billion in assets to go ahead and restock and resupply the enemy that we have been fighting for decades.
Right.
Again, it's a slap in the face to every American, to every military service member, to every veteran, to every Gold Star family member in this country. Now, Francois, I have a question for you. Are you in fear for your life when this documentary comes out for what you may be exposing to a lot of made men out there, if you will, that have been kind of hiding in the shadows of this, thinking that it would never come out, having the answers or the truth ever come out? Are you in fear of your life?
I know there's heat. In terms of fear, no, I have no fear. I wouldn't do what I do if I had fear. But
tell them what happened to you at the border.
Nah. Yeah, well, a few years back, we were supposed to. Where was I going to? Massachusetts, to meet with a lot of the families of Extortion. This is after we already start filming, and that's it. I was denied entry at the border. This is when right after it got known that I was involved doing this project. Usual trip to the U.S. I arrived and I was detained, held for a few hours. My family too, and without any explanations, I was basically told I was a persona non grata and couldn't come into the country. It's something that has happened after looking into it. A lot of filmmakers and journalists involved in topics that involve the war, NSA, government. It's not uncommon. Laura Poitras, who was the American journalist involved behind the Ed Snowden story. She's actually the one that, and she did 2 films, I think, in the past about Iraq. She got a taste of that on her own. The only difference that she's an American citizen, so she couldn't be denied entry, but she was for a while on a no-fly list. They were always trying to grab her devices, computers, laptops, and it got worse after Ed Snowden.
Have you war gamed this at all with Charles and perhaps some of the other Gold Star family members and perhaps even some Navy SEALs on the fallout that you all may get once this is dropped?
Not really. It'll get out there one way or another. The information will be out there, and that's it.
Yeah, because once it does drop, there's no takebacks in this stuff. And again, there's a lot of high level folks that are going to be, looking to want to just get away. Like that Southwest want to get away. Yeah, take that one way flight out.
We're already at the finish line.
Yeah.
So we made it this far. We could have been at the finish line 4 years ago or 3 years ago. I never felt it was enough. I kept talking, Joey. I want more. We need more.
You're right, and that's where the courage.
Yeah, and then you reach a point. You think you have everything, and just out of the blue, someone pops up. Hey, I want to talk to you.
That onion just keeps.
You just keep peeling, and I think we made it to. I think there's another layer that we won't get to, the layer of individuals that never are held accountable for anything. We were talking about the loss and 20 years of war. At the end of the day, it's follow the money. A lot of people on the U.S. side, Germany side, UK side, Canada side, politicians, contractors got very, very, very wealthy, and a lot of Afghans too.
Well, you know what they say,
and the Saudis are the ones securing all their money. So,
war is big business, and the sacrifice and the blood that is shed is on the backs of American service members. Again, our young patriots that are getting sent overseas, and being told one thing, and perhaps, again, it's what
tell you a story. One of the richest guys in Afghanistan nowadays. Now he's a resident of Dubai. This guy used to sell sunglasses on the sidewalk right outside Bagram base. How did this guy become the most politically influential guy in Afghanistan and the richest guy in Afghanistan. He went from selling sunglasses to providing fuel to the U.S. troops. Built himself a contact from Iran and basically providing fuel to the U.S. military, Iranian fuel. So, and stories like that, they're everywhere in Afghanistan.
I got a question for you. The U.S. government has denied tens of thousands of SIVs that were promised, special immigrant visas, to the interpreters in Afghanistan. Did anything ever come about? Did you uncover any of that information when you were doing this stuff?
Well, I know I have a good network of contacts in Afghanistan. And yeah, a lot of people that I know are living still in fear.
Right.
Because of that, they dedicated their past 20 years at different levels, interpreters, videographers, all kinds of people that they were promised that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've not got to get into details, but with one of our crew members, we saw it firsthand what happened to him.
And there's great relevance to that as well, especially in this story. Again, we hit so many different parameters of this because there was an Afghan interpreter that was also killed in Extortion 1-7. It was part of the 38 that were killed.
Right.
And when you start to look at the players, the people involved, there's a lot of questions that still have, not been answered.
There's a lot of generals from the special Afghan forces as well. These people are a lot of them not serving anymore. They're just living in fear, hiding in their respective villages. It's crazy over there right now. I mean, you can't have a camera. The control that the Taliban has seized control of the whole country. If you're standing at a corner holding an iPhone and filming, you better have a permit from the Taliban to be filming at a specific corner. So the only media that's allowed nowadays over there, it's written media. It has to be pre-approved. So for us to bring the cameras there was quite something, actually.
Well, you're going to be giving them a lot of credit in the United States, and they know that they can use that to their advantage.
I've been giving them credit. It's not credit.
That's how they're going to look at it, though. They're going to look at it, hey, we're the heroes here. We shot down this bird. And not only did we shoot it down, but we shot down some of the most highly trained warfighters in American history. And, by that right there, they're going to feed that and they're going to use it as propaganda all day and every day and really be proud of it, while our folks here are just up in arms about it and that are frustrated with it, that are angry with it, that are grieving with it every day, like folks like Charles Strange, who have been.
I get your point on that. At the same time, I think that by doing so, we can provide some answers to these gold stars about who enabled this.
Yeah, who these folks they need.
Who do you blame? The hitman, or the one that orders the hit? So.
Yeah, you need closure. And these folks have never had closure. Charles, what do the other Gold Star families think of you doing this documentary with Francois?
Go, Charlie, go. 48 of them wrote in questions out of the 60 Gold Star parents. They want answers too. Somebody needs help to be held accountable. So it don't ever happen again, and that's why this documentary is so important. And Francois worked his tail off for it. And And these people that stood up and came out and spoke, like he said, over the years, all of a sudden we got CIA, we got the Air, we got the Rangers, we got other people, and they were all there, and we got the Taliban. So it's here's you watch the documentary.
At times it was very frustrating because you want to talk to people. It's like, talk to me, say something, and no.
So as a film director, working to get answers for a very high level military incident, and to try to get through to setting up a meeting with a terrorist organization, the Taliban, how does one go about logistically setting that up?
Oh boy.
Hey,
he's been in the business for 30 years.
Yeah. You've got some good intel. You got some good contact. Hey, look, I gotta ask the question, being a podcaster. But
one thing leads to another.
Yeah. In the deeper you get, it gets wild.
As I told you the other day, the extortion, I mean, it's a story with a lot of conspiracies. We debunked a lot of them. We proved a lot of them. Aside from there's a bigger story in this. There's a lot of, and I think this has made it more problematic too in terms of getting the story out there, and we've seen that in the I'm going to call it a congressional hearing, for lack of words, whatever it was called, 2013, 2014. There was a lot of gross negligence from the minute they were called in to the minute the coffins were delivered at Dover. Extreme gross negligence at every single level you can think, or sometimes you're baffled, like, what? Who was there at the mortuary affairs? Yeah.
Now, shows like this, documentaries like this, I already know the American people are going to be angry, and rightfully so. Will shows like this continue to separate the American people from the actual government itself when it comes to trust factors, and further divide, say, my son will never join the military, or my daughter will never join the military?
It's a thought. I mean, there is no more humble profession than the military. I think that just by looking at the story, the military has been mishandled by powers that be. I don't think it would discourage, but I think it's a cautionary tale as to how things are handled. So actually, it might be an eye opener for people in the military.
Exactly. That that eye opener could be, my son or daughter is not going to serve the military. Do I love my country? Yes. But am I going to be sending my son and daughter off to war for it to be mismanaged like this, and to have this gross negligence take place there, where we lose our good men and women at what? For what? Again, what is, and then you say it's all about the money, follow the money, blah, blah, blah. Well, pretty soon folks are going to say, you know what? We're done here.
I think in the end too, I pray that, the film will bring, I mean, there's good moments, there's bad moments. Sometimes the truth you want to hear, it's not the one we want to hear. I hope that, there's nothing that will bring closure to these families, but I think it brings at least a certain level of closure, understanding, and clarity as to what happened, and the general public too. One thing that I have to say is that as challenging it was at the beginning, as the years went by, we got a lot of support from incredible people, not necessarily related to the story in any way, but it's such a powerful story. Like I said, it's not about warfare. It's about this man right here, who's a representation of a very large club that nobody wants to be in. So.
Indeed, Charles.
Thank you, Brian. And Francois, I think that the documentary, I get what your question was, Brian. No, people will still join the military. Young men and women will still join the military. I do know, like, for a fact, like, the rules of engagement were changed so many times. And I know young men, I was at Fort Polk, Fort Bragg over the years, and they just did 4 and got out so they could get the college money, so they could get the state trooper job or the fireman job, because you have the credits from being in the military because they didn't go to college. Or they went to the military to get the money to go to college as well, like Michael did. So, yeah, the military will stay. I think it'll be an eye-opener on the people in Washington, D.C., whose sons and daughters do not serve this country. And how dare they stand up and say they love this country, but their kids ain't going. They're not serving, So,
yeah. It's the folks at the highest levels, okay, that are calling the shots. And all the people down here, all the war fighters are all operating in good faith. But is the military brass operating in good faith? That's the question here.
Let me tell you something, man. I met them 3- and 4-star admirals and generals. They don't even look like they were in a fucking slap fight, yet alone go into Afghanistan. And I told them right to their face, bro, I said, this guy's calling the shots? You got to be kidding me. He looks like Pee Wee Herman. Were you ever over there? So it's, they should change how you become a 3- or 4-star admiral. For me,
Well, they should
all that.
I think, Charles, because I mean that it is a topic we have in the film. I think they should change or look at how the recruitment system works too.
Oh,
so that's and who's recruited,
right?
Yeah,
that's in the film. That's huge.
Recruited as in kids joining the military?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When it comes to, say, allegiance, perhaps?
I would say the
tactic.
How a specific spectrum of the communities are targeted to and promised and promised careers and whatnot to join the military. Let's say that it's not always black and white.
A lot of bait and switch.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good way to put it.
Exactly.
One final word or question. You said it a bunch. You said that the Taliban is strong. They are stronger than ever. With the Taliban being so strong again, and everything that's going on here in the homeland in the United States of America, do you feel a terrorist attack here is imminent?
I mean, I think that it's been worldwide. It's been something imminent for the past 20 years. We keep kicking that hornet's nest constantly. So we're gonna get bitten at some point. I think the threat is there. From what I've heard from a lot of individuals in the intelligence community, it's an open secret. There are a lot of sleeping cells across North America.
It's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
Right. Francois, Charlie, you guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're great, Brian. Thank you for having us on.
So that's gonna be our Extortion 17 DVD and our special edition. Give you a little sneak peek here. Not too much. Yes.
Oh man, that is going to be awesome. When can we expect this to be dropped?
Today, by the end of the year. So people can subscribe on, can go to ext17.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and we'll keep people informed as to when it will be out in different platforms. It'll be out on DVD. There'll be private screenings. We're looking right now if there's going to be a festival circuit first, and then on major platforms, Apple, Amazon, Prime, etc.
Hey, look, the only way that we're going to get the trust and confidence back in our government is to tell the truth and to let people know what's really going on and to expose these dark secrets out there and to expose, these injustices, really. And once we can get this all out there and begin to have that confidence again, and so many folks that are calling the shots in this country, is when we're going to start to really heal as a nation. I mean, look, we have to heal from over 20 years of war. There was so much lost here, and you guys are doing an honorable thing. And Charlie, for you to be in this fight every single day after losing your son, the grieving process never ends. You live this every single day. That scab has never healed. You rip that sucker off every morning, but as you rip it off every single morning, like you said, I can't wait for tomorrow because I'm going to be better looking than I was today.
Well, I think Charlie has turned that grief and pain into something non-human. He's relentless. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know where he gets his energy and his drive, but it's
his purpose. It's his purpose.
It has become his. It is his purpose. So, and he sucked me in.
Thank
you guys.
Appreciate it. Michael Strange Foundation, ext17.com. Check out the documentary. Thank you for having us on.
You're welcome. Thank you, Francois. Thank you, Charlie.
All right.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.